Hi, this is Natalie from Tangle Artistry, and today I'm going to show you how to make these chunky pumpkins. It's really simple. It's just a few steps. You're going to mark off where your stem is and then paint your pumpkin. So you paint your stem one color and then your pumpkin a different color. And we're going to glue it all together, let it dry, do some distressing, add your twine and your leaf, and you're done. So the first thing I'm going to do before I start painting is I'm just going to mark off where my stem is. So I'm going to make sure my bottoms are lined up, and then I'm just going to take a number 2 pencil and very lightly just sketch on here where the middle part sticks up from the other pieces. And do that with all of your pumpkins. And this doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to put twine here anyway, so you're not going to see it. To paint, I'm going to use one of these sponges. These sponges are reusable, so you can just put them in some water, rinse them out, squeeze them really good to get all of the paint out, and then dry it on a paper towel or a rag to make sure you get all the water out if you're going to reuse it. So before you start, you just want to take your paint, make sure the lid's on tight, and give it a little shake. And then we're just going to open this up. We're going to dip our sponge right into the color and then dab it off onto your paper plate. And then we're going to swipe. Now for the line here, I'm going to go right up against it and then come out. And then just do that on all of the sides. And then the top. The top part, since it's cut, sometimes it's a little bit harder to get the paint in there. So I will dab the paint on the top. And then just repeat that for all of your stems. Now I'm going to paint my other pieces, the rest of the pumpkin. The parts that are inside here that are going to be touching, you don't have to worry too much about painting those parts, but I do normally get at least the edges in the first little part. So that when they're put together in the crack there, you don't see any of the bare wood. I also do not normally paint the bottom of the pieces because that way it's when it's standing up and sitting on your shelf, you don't have any paint on the bottom that might get onto your surface. So the same thing, I'm just going to take my paint, shake it up. I'm going to dip my sponge right into here, and then I always dab it off onto a paper plate so I don't have too much paint on my sponge. And then I'm just going to wipe across. Once you have all of the pieces of your pumpkins painted, I would do all 3 of them at the same time, and you're going to glue them. So you're going to take your glue. I normally like to just kind of shake it up before I start. And then I'm just going to put some glue here. Make sure it's not too much glue because then it'll seep out into your edges. And then I'm going to put my middle piece right on top, line up the bottoms, make sure they're straight, and then I'm going to put some glue here, again not too much, and then put my last piece on, again lining up the bottoms, making sure it's straight. You can even take something flat to push those against to make sure that bottom edge is straight, and then put something on top of it like a can or just something that's gonna apply some pressure so that it will kind of clamp it together so it can dry. Or if you happen to have clamps in your house, you can use these to clamp it together as well. Just make sure you don't apply too much pressure because you will leave a dent in the side of your wood. Once you have all 3 pumpkins done and glued, let them dry for about an hour, and then we'll do this distressing. While you're waiting, you can paint your leaves. These you can paint however you want. If you have painter's tape or masking tape at your disposal, you can use this to help you stick your leaves down while you paint. You just wrap it around itself so the sticky part is facing out, stick it to your table, and then you can stick these guys right on to the tape and they'll kind of stay in place while you paint. If not, no problem, just kind of hold it down while you paint. I'm going to use one of my sponges, cut in half. So I'm going to sponge my paint on and kind of blend it together. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my yellow, dip my sponge in there, dab it off, and then I'm going to paint about half of each leaf with this yellow color. Doing 2 coats just so it's a little brighter. I'm not worrying too much about my edge. And then I'm going to take the same sponge and dip it into my red and dab it off. And then starting from the bottom and going up. And then I'm just going to kind of overlap that area just a little bit. Then I'm going to clean my sponge and take some orange paint. If you didn't get orange paint in your kit, if you got a different color, you can mix some of your red and orange and yellow together to make orange. But I'm going to dab that in the center here to kind of blend where those 2 colors meet. That's it. So that's really easy. You want to let those dry and then flip them over and do the other side. After our pumpkins are glued together and dry, we're going to do a little distressing. So we're going to use the brown paint. I'm going to use my square brush first, dip it into the brown paint, and then dab it off, like so I don't really have hardly any paint on there at all. And I'm going to go into my grooves. So really kind of dab it off so you just have a little bit of paint on your brush, not too much. If ever the brown is too much for you, like you've put a little bit too much on, let it dry and put some more of your pumpkin color on top of it, and that'll kind of hide it a little bit if it's a lot of brown. After I do my grooves, I'm going to go in and kind of add a little bit of distressing all over. So I'm going to take this chip brush and I'm going to dip it into the brown paint, but then I'm going to kind of dab it off, kind of like wipe it off back and forth. So I really don't have that much paint on my brush at all. This is called dry brushing, so you want your brush to basically be dry but have just a little bit of color on it. And then we're just going to very lightly just kind of paint over the surfaces of the pumpkins. You can also kind of like on the edges here apply a little bit more pressure so that your edges are a little bit darker brown. And you can do as little or as much distressing as you want. And you can add some more brown. You can add a little bit more of your pumpkin color back in, kind of have some fun. And then do all 4 sides, and then don't forget to add a little bit on your top up here. And then I like to distress my leaves just a little bit too. So again, just make sure you barely have any paint on your brush, and then lightly kind of paint over. It's always better to do a light touch. You can always add more or go heavier. It's a little bit easier to do that than to try and touch it up. And then you, just keep in mind, you can always kind of dab off or go over some if it's too much of the brown for you. And then I add a little bit extra to the stem here just to kind of make it look like the end of your leaf. Once you've distressed your pumpkins and you're done painting, let it dry, and then you can do your twine. So I'm going to take my leaf that I want to put on this pumpkin, and I'm just going to put the twine through the hole, and then make sure I have enough back here to tie it. You can give that a little bit of slack to hang down, and then you're just going to loop this around 3 times, and then you're going to tie it in the back. So I tie it once and then give it a double knot, and then I'm just going to tuck the twine into the sides here. If it's a little long, you can cut it off. Don't cut it right at the knot here or it will probably come undone. So I just tucked those into the sides, and then I'm going to apply a little bit of the wood glue, just a dot right on that knot there, and kind of smush it in so that that knot will be glued together and it won't come undone. After you glue the knot and you let it dry for a while, if you want to cut the strings a little bit shorter, you can. I find they normally still stick out, so hiding them, kind of tucking them in the sides there, works out the best. And then there you have it. There's your pumpkins. Do that with all 3 and you are all done. Now these are not sealed, so I don't recommend putting them outside, but if you want to put them outside, you would want to seal them with something that is an outdoor sealant. I like to use a spar urethane that is water-based, and it won't yellow your finish. If you use an oil-based, a lot of the times oil-based finishes will yellow your finish. But these are kind of rustic anyway, so it doesn't really matter. You can always email me or ask me if you have questions, or if you want a particular brand that I use. I can let you know if you want to seal them, but otherwise you can put them inside and set them on your counter or your mantle and make a beautiful display. And that's all there is. I hope you had some fun. I hope you learned a few things. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions, or if you want to show me your beautiful artwork once you're done. I love to see what you make. You can email me at natalie@tangleartistry.com, or find me on social media. I am on Instagram and Facebook. It's @tangleartistry. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye.